Irish people, I like you, but sometimes your words and your names, it looks like you're just trying to cheat at Scrabble. Hello, Champagne Dreamers. Welcome back to my channel. I'm your girl, Miss J. And today we're taking an international trip in our minds. So I've got my mask, I'm sanitized, and I'm ready to go. Since we're not actually going anywhere, I took my mask off. And I am very excited about today's video because we are going to talk a little bit about some makeup that I found when I was on a trip to Ireland. Recently, I posted the About Me tag and I talked about some travel that I've done, and I mentioned a work trip that I took to Cork, Ireland. While I was there, I did a lot of makeup shopping, and I have a lot of fun UK and Ireland brands that I want to show off today. So if you're excited to see some great Irish makeup brands, as well as a few UK brands and a couple of surprises that I found along the way, go ahead and get comfortable, sit tight, because we're about to get into it right now. All right, Champagne Dreamers, top of the morning to ya. Instant cringe. I am so excited. I promise not to do any more accents. It's terrible. I love an Irish accent, but I can't do it for shit. But this is a cute little mug that I got when I was in Cork. It's a little souvenir. All the touristy shops have things with leprechauns and shit all over it, and I know that that's not like true like Irish culture, but they know that us dumb Americans love a good leprechaun. So this mug is where I keep a lot of my pencil liners and things, but I'm going to show you a bunch of fun makeup that I bought while I was on my trip to Cork. So while I was in Cork, there were 4 primary places that I shopped for makeup. There was Debenhams, which is sort of a department store, kind of like a Nordstrom or a Macy's, and my understanding is that Debenhams has now closed all of its shops in Ireland, which is kind of sad. It was a nice place to go. And they had some great options. They had a lot of the US-based makeup brands. So they had a Too Faced counter, they had a Buxom counter, all of those kinds of things like you would find in a Sephora. I also spent a lot of time at Boots. Boots is kind of like an Ulta. So they have a lot of lower price, more drugstore type brands. And then they also have a few of the higher end brands as well. Then there was a place that I went to called Pennies. So it's spelled like JC Penney's, but it's just Pennies. And it was kind of like a TJ Maxx / Forever 21. Like it was kind of like a mixture of that. And it had a lot of more affordable dupe brands, things like that. A lot of brands from Primark, which is something that I've heard Make Me Up Missa talk a lot about, which I think is sort of like their version of almost like a TJ Maxx and a Walmart. Kind of a general store, inexpensive shopping place. And the last place that I went shopping were a lot of local pharmacies. And when we get down to the Irish brands, we'll talk more about the local pharmacies. They were everywhere. So they have a bunch of products from KVD Vegan Beauty, and they also had some discontinued products. So I was able to pick up, this is one of the lip veils, which I love. My understanding is that they are discontinuing these from the line, and that makes me very sad because these are actually really great as a lip topper, as something that you can paint over another liquid lipstick, and it really does transform it. It dries down, it's long lasting, and I think they're beautiful. And the only one that I didn't have was the gold 10th anniversary edition that she had done, and so they had it, and it had already been discontinued, and it was there at a discount, so I was able to pick it up at a discount. And also this is their Locket brightening powder, and this is in the shade Petal, and this was another one that had been discontinued, and they had it for half off. And I was able to get 2 of these because I love this. This is my favorite under eye brightening powder. I absolutely love it when I'm baking under my eyes. And so I got these at a discount. And it was kind of interesting to travel all the way to Ireland and pick up things that I can get in my local Sephora. Maybe not cost effective, but it was fun. Luckily, I picked up some other things too. Another brand that I was very excited to find that started as a US brand and then hasn't been available in the US for a while, and I think they might be trying to bring it back again, and this is something that I talked about in the Makeup Memories tag video, which I'll go ahead and link up in the cards, and that is Max Factor. So Max Factor is a brand that started in Hollywood. Max Factor was a makeup artist in the silent film era, and he actually developed a lot of the cosmetics that were used for early silent films and then the early ages of Hollywood. And a lot of his clients, he just mixed up custom formulations for a lot of the actresses of Hollywood. He worked with Bette Davis, he worked with Joan Crawford, Clara Bow, the famous Clara Bow lip he is the person who is credited with creating that look for her. And so his brand actually kind of disappeared from the States for a while, and I was very excited because when I was first getting into drag, like I talked about in the Makeup Memories tag video, I used a lot of Max Factor products, and so I was able to find some Max Factor foundation. This is the Lasting Performance Touch Proof Foundation. And this is the Radiant Lift Long Lasting Radiance Foundation. And I even picked up 2 shades of something that I mentioned in that Makeup Memories tag video. Have you watched it yet? I've dropped enough clues that you should go check it out. But that is 2 shades of the Lipfinity. And this, I did a little bit of research and I confirmed that this was the first matte liquid lipstick that was released on the market. When it first came out, they were calling it Demi-Permanent, and it is a liquid to matte formula. Some of them had a little bit of shimmer to them, like this one. This pink color is very similar to the one that I had back when they first launched. And I bought a pink and a red shade, and then this is the balm that it comes with. And so you were supposed to put these on, but they're a very dry formula. So you were supposed to put these on and then put the balm over it to keep your lips a little bit more hydrated. These were launched in 2000, and they were the first transfer-proof, long-wear liquid lipstick. And I remember when these came out, I went up to Winnipeg and I went to the MAC counter because I was the MAC girl at the time. And so I asked the person at the counter if they had anything like this. And if anybody's been to the MAC counter, you know that some of the people who work there are delightful. Some of them are lovely. And some of them are less so. And so I got one of the ones who was a little bit snooty, thought she was a little bit better than everything. And so I asked her, I said, you know, Max Factor just put out these liquid lipsticks where you paint it on and it dries down and it stays. Does MAC have anything like that? And she gave me this sort of side-eye glance, and she said, MAC doesn't really chase the mass market trends like that. Bitch. The way she said mass market with just like disdain dripping off of her voice. And then about 2 years later, after I stopped at that counter, they released their liquid lipstick formula, which was called the Pro Longwear. And liquid lipsticks obviously have been a huge impact on the beauty space, and almost every brand has some sort of liquid lipstick option. So fuck you to that girl. I mean, I'm over it. Clearly I'm not bitter. So now we're getting into a lot of the places like Boots and Pennies. They didn't really carry any Irish brands. Irish brands are a little bit smaller, and so to get distribution in those bigger places, most of them were UK-based or other European brands. So one that I found that I was super excited about is Makeup Obsession. I was so excited because this was before Makeup Obsession ended up in Target. And so I thought, oh, this is a cool brand. They're brightly colored and they've got this beautiful packaging. And like this Dream with a Vision palette you can see has all kinds of fun pastel colors. And I was like, this is a fun brand, and it wasn't too expensive. Little did I know that it was one of the Makeup Revolution brands, and it was going to be launched in Target about 2 months after I came back from Ireland. So I was so excited, and I was telling everybody, I found this brand called Makeup Obsession. I found this brand called Makeup Obsession. It's so cool. It's this UK brand. And then it ended up in Target, and it was just a Makeup Revolution brand. But I was excited for those 2 months. So I had found the Dream with a Vision eyeshadow palette. It was springtime, but for some reason they still had a Halloween palette. This was one of their Halloween collection palettes, Be Very Afraid. I got 2 blush and highlighter palettes, Mad About Mauve and Isn't It Peachy, the Even Out Anti-Redness Primer, and the Fix It Extra Hold Makeup Fixing Spray. So even though it turned out it wasn't as cool and innovative and such a big discovery as I thought it was, I'm kind of excited that now Makeup Obsession is starting to end up in more places, because I do generally like the products from this brand. I have a lot of Makeup Revolution products, and I think that this brand is just as good, if not sometimes a little bit better. I think the eyeshadows are still kind of hit and miss, but the face products have been really good, and so I'm excited that these are now more available in the US. I mentioned the store called Pennies, and that's where I found a lot of makeup products that were branded with Primark or Primark. And they have this brand called PS, and they are inexpensive products. They're generally like a drugstore kind of brand. And one thing that I noticed is that a lot of the products seem to dupe other kind of Sephora mid-range brand. So this is the Daily Detox Primer, and this reminds me a little bit of the Urban Decay when they did those anti-pollution products, the primer that came out with that group. They have the False Lash Queen Mascara, and I didn't keep the packaging, but the packaging for this looked like kind of a knockoff of the Too Faced Better Than Sex mascara. And then they had little liquid lipstick and lip liner kits that were meant to look like the Kylie Cosmetics lip kits. I also picked up a concealer and a red liquid lipstick from something that looks like it might have been some sort of collab. It says Mina X Primark. I don't know who Mina is, but this lipstick is bomb. I also picked up one of their Rose Quartz eyeshadow palettes. This was 10 euros. So pretty affordable. There are 20 different shades of both matte and shimmer, and it's just a cheap, fun eyeshadow palette. And the last thing that I picked up from the brand was the Double Coverage Matte Foundation. One thing I thought was interesting is that, especially in Pennies, and I saw this a couple other places, is that Ireland is a place that's pretty white. That's not to say that there aren't people of color there, but certainly a lot of population. So you kind of might wonder, like, what kind of shade range would there be? And they had a pretty light shade range available. They had a couple darker shades, but one thing I noticed with this foundation in particular, as well as a lot of others, is that a lot of, especially the more drugstore priced foundations, would have a fairly limited range across the board. So they would have one or two very pale shades, some light to medium, maybe a couple dark shades, but they had a lot of mix-ins. So they had a lot of white, black, red, blue, and yellow kind of mix-ins. So you could buy something that was close to you, and a lot of the foundations that were available were neutral toned. And so if you were more cool toned, you could buy the neutral that was closest to you, and then get some blue or maybe some white. And so it was something where you could kind of mix it up. I don't know if that's super common across all of the makeup brands throughout the UK or Ireland or Europe, but that's one thing that I noticed, especially with this brand. There weren't a ton of shades in the selection, but they did have a lot of mix-ins, and they allowed you to customize it, which might be an interesting way to sort of address some of the limitations on a shade range. The next brand that I picked up is sadly not around anymore, and that is the brand C.Y.O. And actually, when I was there shopping, these were mostly all on sale. I got quite a few products because they were all 50 to 70% off. And there's actually a little bit of drama surrounding this. So C.Y.O. was a boots brand, and people started to notice that it was going on sale, these 50 to 70% off sales, and they seemed to be clearing it out. There didn't seem to be new products. And so people were on social media wondering, is this going away? Is it being discontinued? And Boots didn't say anything. They didn't have any public statements. And actually, what caused them to have to admit that they were closing down the brand, and this after I just posted a statement saying I was no longer going to talk about Jefferson Starship on my channel. It turns out that the reason why they had to publicly acknowledge it is that when Jefferson Starship did his shopping in the UK video, he went to a Boots and they were looking at the C.Y.O. display, and the person who was working there happened to mention, oh, this is being discontinued. He kept that in the video, and with his platform, once that was released, then people started saying, hey, Jefferson Starship has this video talking about the fact that this is being discontinued. Is this true? And they finally had to acknowledge that they were shutting down, the brand was being discontinued, and it was because of that video that they finally, who knows when they would have made a public statement, or if they would have just tried to disappear without any statement at all. We don't know, but it was because of that video. So I picked up a couple of face palettes, just this simple little highlight and contour, got a nice little bronzer and a highlight shade. Another face palette with a powder bronzer, and then a highlight and blush that are cream. I also got 2 cream eyeshadows in blue and green. Of course I had to get green. 2 powder blushes. And 3 super fun metallic liquid lipsticks. So unfortunately that brand is no longer around, but it was pretty cool that I got to try a bunch of different products and get a 70% off discount at the same time. Another brand that I found in Pennies was one called Flormar, and they had a lot of basics. It was another one of those with kind of inexpensive priced products, and I had already done a lot of shopping, and so I was like, well, I don't know if I need to try everything, but I realized I didn't have a loose powder, so I did pick up the Flormar loose powder, and this is just a translucent, invisible powder. Now, I did a little bit of research on this brand, and it turns out that this is actually the #1 brand of Turkey. So I wish that I had known that this was a Turkish makeup brand, and I would have probably bought a few more products just to try them out. But I was researching and I found that they are the #1 brand in Turkey, and they're sold throughout Europe. The next two brands that I found, they were right next to each other, and I had to Google to see if they were actually the same brand, because one is called Collection and one is called Natural Collection. And I thought maybe the Natural Collection was just like the nude, sheer foundation or something version of Collection, but they are actually separate companies. This is what I got from Natural Collection. So I picked up their Hydrating and Radiance Foundation. I haven't tried this yet. It's been sitting in my box to try. And hydrating and radiance, like, this is going to be a mess, but it was cheap. I was like, we'll try it. We'll see what happens. And then I did also pick up this little concealer color corrector. So I got a little green color corrector. I wanted to make sure that of the products that I bought, I had enough to do a full face. So that will be a future Face Friday post that I do on the World of Champagne at JanessaJ.com. You knew that was coming, didn't you? And I am going to do a full face of different products that I picked up on my trip to Ireland. Now, from Collection, they were a brand that had a lot more color, a lot more shine and sparkle and glitter, and they were kind of fun. So I picked up a few things that I thought were shiny and sparkly and that I knew would be able to work into my makeup style. So this is the Primed and Ready Primer in Warm Apricot, which has kind of a golden glow to it. And so I think it's similar to the Too Faced Tutti Frutti, the Do You Luminous Primer, but it has a little bit more of a golden apricot, peachy kind of look to it. I also picked up this really fun green, of course, iridescent highlighter. And the last two things that I picked up were 2 shades of the Glam Crystals Holographic Lip Topper. Now, I am a fan of Christine from Simply Nailogical. This is not hollow. It is definitely iridescent, but it's pretty. There was another brand called Berry M, and at that point, again, I had almost picked up everything I needed for a full face, and so I was like, I don't want to get a bunch of duplicates of different kinds of products. I didn't know what to pick up. I was like, well, maybe I'll skip this brand, but they did have a glitter glue and some loose glitter. So this is from Berry M. This is their Glitter Fix Gel and their Glitter Rush, and this is in the shade Wonderland, which is like a black base with orange and yellow and green iridescence. And the last brand that I picked up was also at Penny's, and this is the brand Misslyn. And this looks almost like kids' makeup. And there's a little bit of it that seems to be trying to dupe out the vibes of the balm. The first product that I picked up is the Sweetie Cupcake Trio Highlighter. And this is the single pan highlighter with different shades, and it's got a cupcake pressed into it. This is what I mean where it looks a little bit like kids' makeup. And this is the product where I mentioned that they seem to be duping the vibe of the balm a little bit. This is the Beach Please Bronzer and Contouring Powder. And this one, it's kind of funny because here is the product. I was in a rush. They were closed. Everything closed early in Ireland. So we would work until like 5 o'clock. And the place where I was working wasn't near the downtown area. So I'd have to go back to my hotel, which was like across the street from the site where I was working. And I would have to just throw my bag and my laptop and all that kind of stuff up in the room. And then I'd have to get a taxi to go downtown. And so a lot of times I was going and there wasn't a lot of time to do my shopping. And so I was in Penny's, it was getting ready to close. I'm trying to pick up some stuff and I was like, oh, I don't really have a good contour option. And I had seen this one. And I got back to the hotel and I just was grabbing something off the shelf. And when I got back to the hotel, I realized that I had one that was already open. And not only was it open, but the pan was empty. I had picked up a tester that had broken and all the product was gone. So the next day I had to go back downtown and tell them what happened. And I had my receipt and they let me switch it out so that I could get this one. Because I'm dumb. Now that's pretty much all of the UK-based and just random makeup products that I found, like at Boots and Penny's, even these nails. But these were from the brand on the box said Tipping, and they just say made in China, so I think they're just cheap nails. They're not great, but these are from my trip as well. But I did pick up some products from 3 different Irish brands. So when I found out that I was going to be going to Cork, I went to YouTube and I started Googling and trying to find Irish makeup artists, beauty influencers, YouTubers, anybody that might be able to clue me in on what were some Irish brands, what are some local places to shop for makeup. And I found Christine O'Connor, makeup artist. And I believe her YouTube, I'll make sure it's linked down in the description box. I think it's Christine MUA. But she was fabulous, and she gave me some recommendations. And the one that I don't have here, I actually found 4 things, because Suzanne Jackson, I think is her name, but it's Sosu, S-O-S-U, and she does a bunch of lashes. So I actually have quite a few pairs of Sosu lashes that I picked up while I was in Ireland. So those I don't have to show in the video, but I do have quite a few, and I have actually worn some of those for photo shoots or for shows. So the 3 brands that she recommended to me were Blank Canvas, Luna by Lisa, and Fuschia Makeup. Blank Canvas does sell some makeup products, but most of what I found, and most of what I was interested in, because apparently this is more of what they're known for, is brushes. And they do some beautiful natural hair brushes. So I did pick up, this is an E20, so this is kind of a fluffy blending brush that you could use for eyeshadow. Something of this size I would probably also use for highlight. So this is something I thought was kind of cool, and I do like natural hair brushes. I think that they are great, especially for matte shadows. So natural hair has an advantage for matte shadows because the hair has texture, whereas most synthetic bristles, there's no natural texture to them. So they're better for shimmers or things where you want all of the shimmer and all of the pearl to be placed down on your lid and then spread out, and sometimes you can use a finger to blend them out or whatever. But sometimes matte shadows, you want a little bit of that texture on the bristle so that it has something to cling to, because mattes tend to be drier. They don't have as much of that creaminess to them as a lot of shimmers do, and so that's why natural hair can be really good for matte shadows. So I picked up the E20, and this is a double-ended brush of the E23 and the E24. So this is sort of a packer brush on this side, and it's a little pencil brush on this side. Lisa Jordan is apparently an Irish reality TV star. I don't know much about her. I Googled her at one point just to see pictures. She's got like long blonde hair, and apparently she gets into all kinds of trouble or whatever. But she has a brand called Luna by Lisa Jordan. And the thing that I picked up were 2 lip kits. So the lip kits come with a coordinating lip liner and lipstick. So this is in the shade Morganite, which is this beautiful nude sort of pink kind of situation. These are nice tube lipsticks, nice high quality component. And then I picked up the shade Ruby Flame. And this is sort of a bright coral red. And these lipsticks are really beautiful. I've played around with these a little bit. The lip liners are lip liners. They're fine. They're creamy. They're nice. They're not bad. I never get that excited about any kind of liner pencil, but the lipsticks are pretty good for a tube lipstick. And these were probably, I think I paid like 20 euros, 16 euros. I could be making that up. It's been a long time. I can't remember. But I feel like I didn't pay much more than I would pay for like a Sephora lipstick, and then you also got the liner. And the last brand that's an Irish brand is Fuschia Makeup. Now, I mentioned at the beginning of the video that I did a lot of shopping at local pharmacies. Y'all, I am not an expert on Irish customs, Irish government, Irish culture. There's a lot of pharmacies in Ireland. I don't know why. I tried to do some Googling. I did some research to try to figure out why are there so many goddamn pharmacies in Ireland. Some of the things that I found out is that there is one pharmacy for every 2,500 people in Ireland. There are over 1,900 local pharmacies, and there's a lot of different reasons for this. A lot of it is that apparently in Irish culture, and again, if anybody wants to correct me on this or give me more context, if any Irish people watch this, definitely let me know below. This is just what I found from my quick Google search. I went to the University of Google, and I found some really interesting things, which is that one of the reasons why there's so many individually owned pharmacies is that people just prefer them. And so people in Ireland, a lot of them, don't want to shop from a big sort of corporate pharmacy. They want to shop from a local pharmacy. They want to be recognized. They want people that they know. With their medication, they have a different sort of relationship to doctoring and medication than we have here in the United States. So they want it to be a little bit more of a personal experience. And so because of that, these small local pharmacies have thrived. Also, there's a lot of them because they just don't go out of business. And one of the reasons that I found that was really interesting is that if somebody is a pharmacist and they declare bankruptcy, and this was in an article from spring of 2019, and they said that this might be changing. So this may not be 100% accurate anymore, but at the time, if you were a pharmacist and you declared bankruptcy, you were no longer allowed to practice pharmacy in the country of Ireland. So if you had a pharmacy that was failing and you declared bankruptcy, you couldn't just go get a different job at a different pharmacy. Because you declared bankruptcy, you were no longer allowed to practice. So that's a reason why some of these pharmacies will try to stay open and fight to stay open, even though they're not very successful. I don't know why anybody cares about any of this. We'll see. Maybe I'll cut some of it out. Maybe. All of that to say that I had to walk my happy ass around to every pharmacy in Cork. And let me tell you, finding these pharmacies, so I would look up the brand online and see where their stockists were located. And so they would tell me, the problem is in Ireland that there are things that share the same name. So there's County Cork and then there's City Cork. And then some of those places have the same road names. So I would get into a taxi and I would tell them, I want to go to a pharmacy on this road. I would give them an address. They would go to that address and there would be a pharmacy there, but it was not the pharmacy that I was looking for. And so I found the Luna by Lisa after a couple attempts. The blank canvas I found fairly often in a few different places, but I was looking for Fuschia pretty much every night on my trip. I was going to every one on the list, and it was always the wrong road, or it was the wrong part of Cork. Or it was something that said that it was like related to Cork, but it was halfway across the country. So when I gave the address to the taxi driver, he's like, that's like a 4-hour drive. And I was like, oh, never mind. Okay, bye. So my last day that I was there, I worked for a full week, and then I gave myself an extra day to just kind of have a day trip. Because I'm in Ireland, I have to see a little bit of it. And so I went down. I was already in the southern part. Cork is fairly south. And then Kinsale is a little fishing village that's very much on the southern part. And actually, an interesting piece of history that I didn't know before I went there is that that is the last place that the Titanic sailed from before it sank. The more you know, and Shooting Star. So I went to this fun little fishing village, and it was great. I got to take a tour of the harbor. I got to learn some history of Ireland. I got to do some souvenir shopping. But I was just there chasing makeup because I'm a monster. And I finally found a pharmacy that carried Fuschia, sort of. They were in the process of clearancing it out. They said it didn't move. They didn't want it. She was not very nice about it. She was just like, I've got it in a drawer, and she just like pulled some things out and was throwing them out on the counter. And there wasn't very much to choose from, and so I had picked out a bright, colorful sort of palette that I was trying to look for. And instead, what I got was the nudes. This is the palette that I ended up with. And so this is a 7-pan eyeshadow palette. And this is the strangest palette because, so it's the nudes. So first of all, not my typical aesthetic, obviously. And also, the shades, so down here they have the shade name on the palette, but this is magnetized. You can see they've got these little spots where you can pop them out. For 4 out of the 7, the shade name on the back of the pan is different than the shade name in the palette. So I don't know if when they were building this palette, if they put the wrong shades in. I don't know if some of the shades have been renamed. I don't know what's happening. So this shade in the palette is called Barely There. On the back, it says Sand and Surf. There's one that the palette says is called Sandstone, and it's actually called Sugarcane on the back. The palette calls this shade Sandpiper, but on the back, Bisque. And on the palette, they call this one New Beige, but the eyeshadow on the back is called Brazilian Bronze, which seems to make more sense. Now, I did look up the palette on their website, and it does look like the right palette. So I don't know if these are just shades that are very similar, or like I said, maybe they've renamed the shades. I think it's probably more likely that they've renamed the shades, but it just was odd to me as I was like, oh, this is cool that you can pop them out. And then I popped one out and it had a different name. And I was like, I don't know, what's happening? And so it was just kind of strange. So it's not the palette that I wanted, but I did end up and I had to buy it because I'd been to at least, I'm not exaggerating when I say that I went to at least 20 pharmacies asking if they had Fuschia because I thought they were one of the ones on the list. And so when I finally found that one, I was like, well, I have to buy something. So I bought that palette. I also bought this lipstick. This is called Cranberry Freeze. No, Raspberry Freeze. And this is just kind of a pretty... It's a nice red. Again, not the shade that I would have picked, but she just kind of was throwing... There was like a bag with some random tubes of lipstick in it, and most of them were kind of nude colors, and I found this one. I was like, I guess I'll take that one. And she was like not interested in being helpful. She was, I mean, she was nice enough, but she just clearly was over that brand and just wanted the shit out of her store. So, and she gave me a discount. So, thanks. So that was my weird, wild, wonderful adventure with Irish makeup shopping. I would love to go back to Ireland. It was beautiful. The people were wonderful. I heard one of my favorite things while I was there. So I was teaching a class. I used to do corporate education. And the woman who was in charge of the building, they were moving some things around. And I was working after the regular day. She came in, and I think she forgot that I was there. She had acknowledged me and said hi when she first came in. And I think she forgot that I was there and was just kind of working with some other people, and they were moving some things around. And then somebody asked her if she was going to some, like, work event or something. And I will never forget, without missing a beat, she turned to the other person and said, "I'd rather shit in my hands and clap." And I laughed so hard, and then she like perked up and she's like, "Oh, I'm sorry." And I was like, "Don't be sorry. That's the funniest thing I've ever heard in my life." And to this day, that tickles me so much. And I wish I could do an Irish accent, because she said it in this beautiful Irish brogue. "I'd rather shit in my hands and clap," and I died. But the people were wonderful. The food was really good. There were a lot of interesting little restaurants to go to. There's a lot of history. And it was wonderful. I had a really great time, so I would love to go back again. That is all for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, don't forget, give it that thumbs up on your way out. And don't forget that you can hit the subscribe button and make sure that you hit the bell icon so that you get notification of all future uploads. Because otherwise, you don't know what's going on, because YouTube ain't gonna tell you. If you'd like to chat, banter, or commiserate between uploads, all of my social media will be linked down in the description box. And of course, you can always go to my website, The World of Champagne, at janessaj.com. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate all of you. And until I see you again, bye. In our minds. So I've got my mask, I'm sanitized, and I'm ready to go. And then we're taking this fucking thing off. It was literally just for that moment. Literally. Recently I posted the Makeup Memories tag. No, it wasn't in the Makeup Memories tag. So if you're excited, I'm excited. This is where I keep a lot of my liners and things like that, but...
Turn forward.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Now we transition to talking about Kat Von D.
Kat Von D.
And this is the Radiant Lift All... What the fuck is it called? Long Lasting Radiance. And this, I did a little bit of research and I confirmed that this was the first matte liquid... Blah, 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 blah. Don't roll. Don't you roll. Don't you do it. And the last thing that I picked up was... Why do I look at something and then immediately forget the name? Double Coverage Matte Foundation. And the last thing that I picked up from that brand was the... Fuck. Double Coverage Matte Foundation. Double Coverage Matte Foundation. And the last thing that I picked up from that brand was the Double... Double. I don't know who Mina is, but this lipstick is bomb. Double. Editing Janessa popping in before we're even done with the video. Angie, my intrepid cinematographer, was also doing some Googling and found that this is not Mina X Primark. It's actually 3 INA. And so instead of an M, I thought it was just a sideways M, but it's actually a 3. And it is a Spanish brand that is vegan and cruelty-free.
Cruelty-free and vegan makeup made in Europe. The next level of beauty democracy. Be yourself and shine.
And shine.
Shine.
That 3 INA, it is pronounced Mina. So you did get it, so you don't need to correct it. Yeah, I read, there's a Marie Claire article that has it and says pronounced Mina, by the way.
Oh.
So that's it. And if this one doesn't say it's Spanish, it just says made in Europe cosmetics. So that whole thing where you talk about how to say it could probably be clipped out.
Yeah.
But it is a 3.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so you got the pronunciation correct.
This is my dwell for now.
That's right.
I'm gonna find out all about this bargain makeup brand in Europe.
So it is Spanish. It was founded by 2 dudes, Pablo Rivera and Mark Eve. So Spanish part is right.
Cool.
I know you're done. You're done and over.
I'm over it.
Battery's blinking. Do you want to chance it or do you want to switch?
Let's change it out. It's probably a good time to change it out.
I talked too much about Mina. Took up your
To
time.
Mina. And their Glitter Rush, and this is in the shade... What's it called? It took longer than it should have. And this is the part that I mean that they seem to be duping the... But the 3 other brands that she recommended to me were Fuschia Makeup, Blank Canvas, and Luna by Lisa. And then I picked up the shade Fire Opal. Fire Opal? Is that what it's called? No. Fuck. And then I picked up the shade Ruby Flame. What I did find out is that there are approximately there's one pharmacy for every 250. That's wrong. Okay. All right, and we can stop it.
Stop it. Okay.
We can stop it.